Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's JAE LEE Day. We're looking at the last issue he did for Wildcats Trilogy. This is issue number 3, cover dated December 1993. Starting with the cover, pretty cool image all around. Not quite as many shadows as I would expect from JAE LEE. Pretty good representation of each of the Wildcats characters here, even though Voodoo in this storyline, at least since last issue, it's kind of adversarial. I'll go into why when we get into the comic. Basically, she's been taken over by a Daemonite entity called Hightower. I thought he was a shapeshifter. I made that mistake when I reviewed last issue, so no, he actually takes over her body and mind. And we've got the big headshots of Grifter and Zealot in the background, kind of reminding us that they're on their own kind of little side quest, which, you know, eventually will come together by the end of this issue here. I gotta say, story's been stretched out over 3 issues here because it's called Wildcats Trilogy and not for any other reason. This could have been maybe 1 issue, maybe 2 at the most. And it does feel like not so much for the cover. I think it looks pretty good here. And actually less shadows on it than we're used to from JAE LEE. A little more detail, a little more texture and stuff. Slightly finer kind of finish. At least JAE LEE for this period. Yeah, the story just doesn't warrant 3 issues. And what I wanted to say was, yes, so his artwork in this one, it does feel he's reverted back a little bit to deadline mode. Maybe he's kind of late for this one and he's really got to get it moving. Not that the cover is representative of that. I think it looks great. But on the inside, we're going to get some really good stuff with some really kind of quickly drawn stuff, some rough stuff, which I'll point out as we go through. Like I said, storyline basically, again, Voodoo against Voodoo being taken over by Daemonite against the Wildcats, and Zealot is had been fighting with Artemis, but now that the Coda sisters have shown up to, I guess, kick both their asses, she's going to be basically teaming up with her sister Artemis against the other Coda Amazon warriors. So, Witch's Brew, Brandon Choi, Daffod Wynn story, JAE LEE art, Joe Chiodo colors. I still compliment Joe Chiodo. I think some of the best coloring I've seen on JAE LEE. So here's a good example of the really good stuff here. This first splash page with Voodoo taken over by Daemonite. Great kind of pose on the female character here. More kind of, as I've talked about, finessed inking when he's drawn the lady figures, which is great, right? It makes them, again, a little more feminine as opposed to the male figures. You can see the inking is a little scruffier and hairier, which is fine. You kind of get the dichotomy of those things here with Lord Emp tied up and how she looks and how she's inked. Also here, obviously it's been colored, but most likely white media on the original art. A lot more controlled, right? A lot cleaner. Showing slight signs of moving towards that more elegant, clean style I keep talking about. And some background elements. I like the design of this whole, you know, whatever you want to call that, torture device or containment device, whatever's going on there. The JAE LEE style Kirby crackle I think is really good. Actually pretty precise when it comes to the circles and stuff. So kudos to him on that. Good job there. And we've got, I'll point out, I call these Simon Bisley Lobo chains, right? Like that really short hand wave drawing chains. That's very effective. And we know that he's got a lot of Simon Bisley influence even at this time here. So makes sense that he would use it. And I'll point out, like I said, sometimes I feel when he wants to take a shortcut, he'll use that Simon Bisley, you know, fine line, not very detailed kind of style, which he used in Lobo and Lobo's Back miniseries. Great splash page. Again, still wondering about, you know, the full bleed aspect of these pages, whether or not this should have gone up all the way to the edge, if that was what was intended. Some of the same weird production issues as the Namor books he was on a few years back. Go check those reviews for more detail. So still using that design element here and, you know, deadline-wise being smart and throwing in the silhouettes here. So, you know, here's a part where maybe with the background elements, he's being expedient, right? But I do feel like at least on these foreground figures here, he's adding a lot of detail. Again, a lower rate of shadow, I think, than most JAE LEE art. So it's nice to see him being a little more detailed in his figure work and stuff here. And I really like the kind of creepy look of Spartan who's had his guts ripped out last issue. Little bit of tech here at the top, or guns or something to kind of evoke the environment, and that's all you're going to get. But again, design-wise, I really like what he's doing here with the lines and how he's kind of expanded on what we saw on the last page with the containment device, whatever you want to call it. So on these first few pages, I think he's doing a really good job aesthetically, and he's really putting in the work. I like this shot of, it says Warblade's trapped in some distortion field, so it's just pulling his nose apart and liquidy and stuff, and just kind of creepy, horror-inspired stuff. Very cool. And then on some of these pages, you know, I feel like he's just trying some stuff and experimenting a little bit with stuff I haven't seen before. The way he draws her hair here is very interesting to me. I don't know who I would describe that as looking like, or someone who draws hair in that way. I feel it almost comes from like 60s, 70s psychedelic art, hippie art and stuff. I could be wrong on that, where the inspiration's coming from, but I don't feel like I've seen that before from JAE LEE. And he's doing more of it here, more of it here. Still giving us a pretty good panel count per page, right? The silhouetted minions with their weapons basically being the whole kind of background in silhouette. He does that so much and it works. So why, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Oh, wow. Look at the chains here. I just love how Bisley these are, how Lobo-ish they are. And again, because she's possessed, you know, you can go a little ham and a little crazier on Voodoo here, make her look really evil and stuff. Still using the white medium here. I think this is meant to represent the fact that she's been taken over, for like a visual cue that something's wrong with her. I could be wrong on that, but this kind of horror-influenced representation of Warblade, once again, looks really cool. But yeah, we're not going to get a lot of backgrounds here. The further we move ahead, and we're going to start seeing some rougher art. So it definitely feels like he's putting more effort into those first few pages, and then maybe somewhere around here, I do feel, you know, maybe this is just a good opportunity to use rougher inking and lots more shadow, because it's basically a sequence that's meant to take place in inside Voodoo's mind with Hightower here. So, you know, kind of changing the style up a little bit makes sense, and that's a pretty expedient page, I think, to get through. As is this. Just a big headshot, right? That's probably drawn pretty quickly. Lots of splatter like that. But like I said, he's reverting back to his tricks to get through the deadlines. Lots of silhouettes. Yeah, so probably around here is where I feel, you know, the art starts to slip a little bit. Not the storytelling per se, so it's still fairly consistent. But yeah, you get a shot down here. It's very Bisley Lobo, right? Just cutting out all the shadows and just very fine lines to define the shapes. And this is another page here too, where I'm kind of, I don't know how effective this is. I know what he's going for as far as lighting. I just don't know how well the hat, maybe not so bad on Zealot. I'm not sure it quite works on her forehead here, but I get what he's going for. So kudos to at least trying some different stuff. We've got that psychedelic hair that I was talking about here. And here's something that I find is kind of uncharacteristically JAE LEE, where, you know, she's basically the panel or the contour of the panel. So he's really thickened up the line on her contour to kind of create that panel border. But it just gives his art a totally different vibe and feel that I kind of like. And, you know, it would have been fun to maybe see him do more of this, right? Just ink everything how he usually does, but to do that big, bold contour, I think works well with this style of art. And he only seems to do it in this panel here. And here's where I feel like, oh, he's checked out the calendar and he's like, these pages were due 3 weeks ago. So he really starts to go quick with the white medium, the hatching and stuff. He's not even filling in the silhouettes. You know, very minimalist background, not even finishing it up over here, which is, again, maybe clever, but a little bit of a cop-out on that panel. But again, just the storytelling doesn't suffer. This one is harkening back to the rough stuff he was doing on the Spider-Man 3-parter that he did with Iron Fist guest starring. So I'm seeing more of that quick, expedient inking here. A lot of Simon Bisley and Sienkiewicz there. Some pretty, you know, violent sequences too. Like here's one where, you know, he's just using a very fine line because he's coming through some sort of force field or portal, whatever that is. And I understand the different visual effect, but I think that looks really good. And in a weird way, it's almost like JAE LEE drawing in the Wildstorm style a little bit. Pretty cool. And just, yeah, I love these violent shots of, in this case, because he's Spartan and he's a synthetic being, you can just rip him apart. And I guess morally, even though the Image Comics did not subscribe to the Comics Code, you're getting away with a bit more there. And the blood's not red, it's black, right? All those little tricks. There's a Zealot pinup by Mark Beecham. And I mean, not going to say anything. The art's pretty darn good. Very kind of Neil Adams-y kind of style. I'm pretty sure Mark Beecham worked for Continuity Comics. But you can definitely tell where his focus was when he was drawing this, man. The focus on the crotch area is just, you know, pretty intense. Ass, crotch, camel toe. I mean, just go for the camel toe. Make it more obvious. I mean, that's pretty much running up inside of her. So yeah, again, we're getting all these pages with lots of black backgrounds, right? Lots of silhouettes, moving the story along. I thought this was pretty funny, this panel where, you know, Voodoo and Hightower, she's trying to split from him and she's coming out of his ball sack and his genital area. Just kind of makes me laugh. I'm very childish. This shot is pretty cool too, where again, she's coming out of his crotch, pretty horrific. He's been shot. Just something kind of creepy about it, and the fact that it's in silhouette works for me, even though I'm guessing by this point he's really doing that to be expedient and get through the book. Another, you know, very cool silhouette, but quickly done, and moving on to more pages. So we're back to the ladies fighting Artemis and Zealot against the Kodas. One of them throws one of these lance kind of weapons towards Zealot. And storytelling is a little confusing here. You have to read the dialogue, right? So Andromach, this lady here, no, because she's thrown that. And then, oh, puts herself right in the way here and just kind of very overt, obvious way of the lance. So I just a little clumsy here, I thought. It was, I feel like I wasn't picking up on it as quickly as I should have, what exactly is going on there. So it could have been a little clearer in the storytelling. Pretty cool shot of Grifter. Very minimalist again, using very fine lines. A little bit of hatching here. That Lobo kind of almost Sam Keith kind of inking going on here. That's interesting. But I just kind of like the simplicity of this. Looks pretty cool. And of course, Grifter comes in to save the day and save his sister. And the Wildcats, you know, they finally separated from Hightower. So what's her name? Void kind of boom tombs have been there. And they threaten the Coda, tell them to leave. And that's basically your storyline there. One last pretty cool group shot of the Wildcats here in that cool JAE LEE style. Really works for me. And that's pretty much it for the story. Pretty forgettable. Art's cool. Any interesting ads? Stormwatch Yearbook. Did I ever see this? The fact that Dwayne Turner draws it. I remember seeing this. And this is before he did any stuff for McFarlane. But I was like, I kind of like this guy's style. It's almost kind of a mix of McFarlane and Wildstorm kind of styles. Maybe that's also because he's probably being inked here by a Wildstorm artist. When he goes on to Curse of the Spawn, I'm going to review those soon, I promise you, because those books, you either love them or hate them, but I really like that first, at least that first 4 issues of Curse of the Spawn. Just the darkest, vilest, grimmest stuff from the 90s that you can find. And the artwork is amazing. The coloring is a little odd, but really works for the story. So anyways, when I get to that, I'll talk more about it. There you go, guys. That is, or was, my review of Wildcats Trilogy, issue number 3. If you're still watching and you're subscribed, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a really quick second for you. Helps channel out, helps us grow, helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, and helps us towards our first milestone goal of hitting 500 subs. So everyone out there, thank you once again for watching so much, and have yourselves an awesome day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KINGCOMICS.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.